Hello, folks. Welcome back to Indaba Africa. Chris here once again, coming to you.
Hello, folks. Welcome back to Indaba.
Whoops, sorry about that. Got a little double feedback there. Not so sure why that's happening. But welcome back to Indaba Africa. This is Chris coming to you live from central Pennsylvania, talking about events around the world and perhaps right there in your own little corner of the world. We shall see. For those who were able to tune in earlier, there's a super chat from Brett already. Look at that. Fantastic. I think the problem is I've got it. Yeah, that's the problem. It's playing there. Got to put on mute. So there we go. Thank you, Brett, for that super chat. That was right out of the gate. Well, thank you so much for that. In fact, that's part of the topic about what today is all about, folks. So I'm going to get right into that. Thanks for tuning in. Those who were able to tune in earlier to the stream, the special feature with Giselle, I'm glad you're able to get in because the third party has blocked my video and nobody can watch it now. After having over 260 people watch it while the stream was on, can no longer watch it because I played too many songs, which they claim I don't have the copyright to. But we went through this with the artist and the owner of the music repeatedly. And right now that video is blocked. That's the first time it's ever happened to me having a video blocked. So I hope that gets resolved. Yep, that was a fantastic. Yep, Yanni, you missed it. And now it's blocked. So I can't even show it to you. Hopefully it will be released soon, but kind of irritating when you have the information that says you have the copyright to something. The artist has granted it to you. It happened to me with Chad Prather. It happened to me with the music for the news program I did yesterday. That is claimed for copyright, even though I have the artist's permission. Really frustrating. And of course, when you go through this 99% of the time, they just say, well, we still claim it, and then you have no recourse. So hopefully this will get resolved. But you won't be able to watch a rerun, Yanni, not until it gets fixed. So wherever you find yourself today, whether that's in Canada, somewhere in the United Kingdom, Wales, Northern Ireland, Scotland, or England itself, in the Republic of Ireland, somewhere on the continent, deep in the forest of Slovenia or Slovakia. In Slovenia, where they're burning down statues of Melania Trump because they're a bunch of Neanderthals. Anyway, yeah, and if you find yourself in Asia, in Hong Kong, UCN, where are you at? Haven't seen you in a while. I hope you're okay. I hope the Chinese haven't cracked down on you there in Hong Kong, as well as the folks in Malaysia, Thailand, Singapore, Australia, New Zealand, and back in Africa, in Nigeria, Uganda, Liberia, Senegal, Namibia, Botswana, Zambia, the warm heart of Africa, Malawi, if you happen to be listening from Malawi, or from South Africa, Dumela, Botswana, Sawubona, South Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome from around the world to Chris White Africa. Happy to have you back here. Glad to see people tuning in, people coming in now. The streams are coming in. Thank you so much for being in. Sky Greg T says, my keyboard is turning Japanese. It's better than your Japanese turning to a keyboard. Yeah, Christo says, damn, I missed that stream. My real life is interfering with my live streams. Well, that will be the last special feature I do at 11 o'clock because Eastern Standard Time. With so many people, I don't know the actual figures, but a lot of people are able to go back to work now around the world, but also in South Africa. So because of that, I'll be adjusting my special features to, if it's during the week, I'll be adjusting it to noon, 6 p.m. in South Africa. That way, people who are working will have a chance to get home, get through traffic, get back, turn on their device, and listen from there. So that should hopefully make it a little more convenient for a lot of people. It's also not too late for those who go to bed early. And it'll still be a valuable stream. So future special features. And amongst the future special features, ladies and gentlemen, Brett, I haven't forgot your super chat. I'll get to it in a second. Amongst the future special feature streams, Donald Stanford, former USA Sevens rugby player and premier rugby broadcaster. Such a fine talent. He's been teamed with the likes of Joel Stransky for the Rugby World Cup in 2019 in Japan, for instance. He'll be on the program coming up. Blaine Scully, former U.S. Eagle rugby player. Also captain for the squad there at one point, I believe. And he'll be on potentially some other folks from the rugby world. I'm not going to mention who they are. And possibly some former Springboks coming up too sometime soon. So look for rugby players. That's something I always intended to do on the channel. And hopefully that will be happening in the very near future. Next week for sure I should have Dolan. And we'll see where we go from there. Also in negotiation with Blaine right now to get him on the channel, as I said. So those are some things coming up. Also, we'll be having some other interesting things like some aviation industry experts coming on, folks that design an aircraft, as well as some potentially comedians and more musical artists from South Africa. It's the fingers crossed, hoping that works out well. So that's some of the future special feature live streams coming up on the channel. And I'll also be having back some of my guests who've been on here previously, like Ernst von Zyl, the Conscious Caracal, will be back on the channel. Yet to get Jeremy Nell from Germ Warfare on here. I've been on his channel, but he hasn't been on mine yet. But we still have to get that one for you. And then at some point, we'll get Inata Kwaza back on the channel, as well as Big Daddy Liberty, since they seem to be quite popular. And there's always something new to talk about in South Africa. Speaking of which, I've got a few things to talk about today. So let me get to Brett's super chat, and then I'll catch up with people in the chat. Since Brett came right out of the gate with a super chat, what are some of the human rights issues in the DRC? Well, the prevalence of rape that takes place, rape culture, particularly Eastern Kivus, as a consequence of conflict there and a lack of governance, that's a human rights issue. Rape used as a weapon of war, that's definitely a human rights issue. Another human rights issue is unlawful detention by authorities, arresting people and incarcerating them without charging them with crimes. That happens. Physical torture and denying people food and water and things like that in prison. Other human rights abuses. There have often been claims of human rights abuses in the Congo related to political rights. Well, the history of human rights abuses in the Congo date way back to before even the Belgians came, but certainly from the time that Leopold's agents arrived in the Belgian Congo, things got progressively and demonstrably worse than they may ever have been previously. And since that time, it's been a very painful history for people who live in the Congo. Very difficult stretch of time, which is unfortunate for them. But that's some of the human rights abuses that we see in the Congo. Let's see what else we got here. Brett says, today, famous South Korean General Pak Sung-yup just passed away, 99. The first four-star general that he fought. Yeah. I didn't know he died today. Well, tap my salute to the general. Didn't know that he passed away. Wow. Oh, some of the books last night. I'm going to get those in just a moment, but let me welcome everybody in the chat. Where's my chat window at here? Oh, gosh. I was rebooting everything. Actually, I think I started a moment late there, so sorry about that, folks. Let me try to, here we go, get myself a chat window here so I make sure I'm not missing folks. There we go. Right, got it. Drag it over here, and we're good. Okay, so before the stream started, Sloat was there. He was the first one. Bruce Boster showed up. Gareth is here. Yanni's here. Last night's stream was awesome. Well, thank you, Yanni. Glad you enjoyed it. It was actually fun for me too. I didn't have to talk on camera. I just kind of commented in the background and actually got to watch myself, which was enjoyable. I really enjoyed watching that myself. Sky Greg T, good to hear. Vutsarko, welcome. Tunes, good to see you again. Yanni missed that. Yeah, I'll try to get that sorted out, guys, but I don't have any control over that. And it's really disappointing because Giselle's stream was picking up people. The load shedding that was taking place across South Africa today was brutal. It really affected a lot of people. A lot of people were trying to get on the channel, couldn't get on because they had no power. And so that was a bit of a problem. And then, of course, because the software said that, well, you had 7 or 8 of her songs on there, so we're just going to block your video entirely because the music plays throughout the hour and a half, well, it's a 2-hour stream, it turned out. Really unfortunate. It was a really good stream. I hope to get that fixed. If I do, I'll promote it so that people can go back and watch it as if it were live. So my apologies from that. And Christos says it's interfering with his real life, the streams. Let's see what else we got going on here. Ursula, hi, Ursula. Good to see you there. Tanya van de Venta, good evening. How are you? Keith Alderson is back. Good to see you here. Keith was popped in earlier for part of the stream. Timing, Colonel. You're a military man. All the Congo's tribes were at war when the Belgians arrived, except for the Pygmies. Yeah, exactly, Brett. That's why I said these abuses went on before the Belgians arrived. Vera Lynn died last week, 103. Wow. Thank you, Kyle, for asking folks to subscribe. Really appreciate that. And Sky says that was such a good stream. Well, thanks, guys. I'm glad you really enjoyed that stream. I wish more people had been tuned in. We only had around 30 people. How dare you not ask Giselle for permission? I have Giselle's permission, Gareth. It's a third-party software app that says, aha, you're playing this video. And whether you got permission or not, they force you to claim that you have permission, but they give you no opportunity to show you the evidence, show them the evidence. An email, a letter, an image. They don't let you do that. Yeah, load shedding. I know. It's, load shedding. I do have Giselle's permission. They're just playing games with me. And it's unfortunate because a lot of people want to watch that stream and now we're stuck and no one has been able to watch it. While we're on that topic, the stream, for those who missed the stream the other day with Marlies. Marlies is the young lady who's from the I started to say the Netherlands. She's from Namibia. And she's currently living in the Netherlands where she's working as an au pair with a Dutch family. But the young lady from Windhoek, Marlies, who was made famous by a viral video, which some people thought was staged, but it wasn't staged. It was legitimate. She was my guest on Tuesday, and that was the star of the 18-second video, Fuck Malaise. Anyway, so for those, sorry for the coarse language, but it was an Afrikaans, so I'm sure the YouTube censors won't catch that. But anyway, so she was my guest on Tuesday. We had 296 people tune in for it during the event. I think we had about 70 for the top who were watching it concurrently, which is a pretty good audience. But since then, that video has now gone on to have over 700 streams, 725 streams, I think it is. So thank you so much for people who watched that after the fact. She's an entertaining young lady. She was very appealing on the show and was quite a good guest. I think everyone who watched the video really enjoyed the stream. So thank you for tuning in for that. And welcome to all of those of you who are in Africa, especially in Southern Africa, because you are officially night owls. It is now approaching 10 p.m. in South Africa and in Botswana. So thank you for tuning in at this late hour. I guess I'm the Jimmy Kimmel of South Africa, except that maybe I'm actually entertaining and informative and not just a gas bag like Jimmy Kimmel. I say with a little bit of trepidation. Anyway, so yeah, what else we got here? So I missed a few people. There's Bosch Zebra. Good to see you. Monkey Pushing Wood. That's who said Verlina died. Yanni's there. And this is not updated. My stream is not updated. I got to come back and get it going again here. Let's start a riot. Oh, about load shedding? Okay. Thank you for putting that up, Yanni, the special feature with Marlies. I really appreciate it. I like how you use the word gas bag. Yeah. Well, the other thing I like to do is when someone's acting the fool and they're just full of hot air, kind of like Sleepy Joe Biden. What I talk about is, if it's hot outside and maybe I've been watching and listening to one of these people, I'll say that, that flaming ball of hot gas in the skies. No, not the sun. This politician. Yeah, flaming bag of gas, hot air. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. So what else we got going on here? So a lot of things to talk about once again, some things that really ignite your shorts on fire. So let's see. Not as if I was the first person to ever tell you this, ladies and gentlemen. Certainly not the last to ever tell you this, but I have been consistent in talking about this ever since the topic of expropriation without compensation was tabled by the African National Congress and was voted on, and then they changed their position after 17 years of voting against it. They voted for it. Ever since that day, I've warned South Africans that they will be coming for everything, not just your land, but everything. And with that in mind, folks, let me see if I can get this to come up very quickly here. This is what I want to show you. This is in the Mail and Guardian today. And I would say very disturbing news, but we've come to expect this sort of thing. So I wouldn't, it's not really disturbing news. It's hardly surprising news, I should say. So let's see if I can get this thing to come up. Here we go. There we go. Got to turn my device off. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. The African National Congress wants pension funds to finance infrastructure build. Shocker, 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 shocker. Hi, Ina. Good to see you there. So the ANC is in discussions with the pension funds industry and the Treasury regarding the use of pension funds or retirement savings to finance the useless government's infrastructure projects. Oh, I'm sorry. I was editorializing. I put useless government in there. That's not actually in the article. So that's down here a little bit. This is from Tondo Mako, wrote this article today. So these discussions are on the back of the ANC's proposal to amend Regulation 28 of the Pension Funds Act. The ANC also wants to establish an agency to oversee the government's infrastructure programs. The agency, get this, you ready for this? You're ready? The agency will sit within the office of the presidency. Yet another effort by African leaders to create an all-powerful presidency. Here we see it again. We saw it in Zimbabwe. We've seen it in Rwanda. We've seen it in Uganda. We've seen it all over the continent. And here it is in South Africa. Going around the existing government to create artificial organizations which illegally have access to power and put it in the hands of the presidency. If properly packaged, there's no reason why pension funds should not invest in infrastructure directly instead of using parties in the form of asset managers. Enoch Gondwana says this. Okay, well, I have some issue with that. The proposals are outlined in the ANC's document titled Reconstruction, Growth, and Transformation, Building the New Inclusive Economy. It outlines the party's vision for a post-coronavirus economy. Well, let me rename that, folks. That I wouldn't call that document Reconstruction, Growth, and Transformation, Building a New Inclusive Economy. I would call that Deconstruction. Well, how am I going to say this? I want to say this the right way. I don't want to say this. You can get blocked by the censors. Reconstruction, decline, and you can say transformation. Reconstruction, decline with transformation, building a new racist economy. That's what I would call that. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. The proposal is that the government invest in energy, water, and sanitation, roads and bridges, human settlements, healthcare, education, digital infrastructure, and public transport. Well, some of those are government functions, but most of those are the responsibility of the private sector. To lead this process, South Africa's presidency should be strengthened to play a decisive role in economic policy coordination and working in close liaison with the government's economic cluster, should closely monitor and manage effective policy execution. Blah, 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 blah. Crap. Party says the state bank should be, the state bank should be used to increase competition in the country's banking sector and enhance access to affordable finance. Ladies and gentlemen, let me share something with you. I doubt this comes as a surprise to anybody who's listening out there, but anytime that a government gets involved in the economic production, the means of production in a country, that does not mean that it's improving competition. Trust me. What that means is the government is competing with the private sector and driving the private sector out of business illegitimately. Well, Brett, there's another super chat. Load shedding is alive and well in South Africa. Eskom sucks. Absolutely, Brett. Speaking of super chats, thank you so much for that super chat, Brett. Let me talk about super chats just for a second here. This stream today, I titled 100 super chats. What I want to do is pay close attention to the point at which we reached 100 super chat donations to the channel, well, including super chat / super stickers. And yesterday I went through, I said, we must be getting close to that after nearly a month of being monetized. We're probably getting close to that. So I counted every one of the super stickers and super chats yesterday, and son of a gun, the two that we got yesterday from Tom, I think it was at the end of the stream, we got to 100. So I wanted to thank all of those folks who donated through the channel using super chat and super sticker function. And I also want to thank all the folks who subscribe to the channel, as well as those who become members of Chris White Africa, by recognizing that today. So to all of you out there who've been able to and have contributed to the channel through super chats, including 2 of them from Brett today, I thank you from the bottom of my heart. I really appreciate the support. It goes a long way. Eventually, when YouTube starts sending me the money, which hasn't happened yet, it goes a long way towards paying for these studio lights and for improving the quality of the broadcast, which is something I've been focused on from the outset, making this a more appealing and more useful product for the end user. So thank you so much for that. I salute all of you. Thank you so much for the super chats. And that's the purpose of naming this the 100 super chats today. So that's what it was all about, just to thank you guys for that. So thank you so much. All right, let me get back to the chat here. Joe Biden. Well, okay, hang on. Let's get back to Joe Biden. Does anyone know if load shedding is a genuine lack of power or a part of the conditioning of the population? It's a good question, Keith. Honestly, the problem really has been historically, until lately, it has been a situation of not having the capacity because of underinvestment in the traditional power generation sector, which is based on coal, then closing coal-fired power plants and not replacing them with additional sources of energy. That's been a part of the problem for a very long time. And I'm not seeing something come up here. I want to make sure we've got some things going on here. So just saw something else. It should have come up on the screen, and I don't see it on the screen. Member goal is not there. Super chat. There it is. There it is. Gus has become a member. Well, thank you, Gus. You've got the zombie crawling up to Mahaly'sburg there. You've become a member at the platoon leader level. Thank you so much. Gus becomes the 67th member of Chris White Africa. Thank you so much for that, Gus. Gosh, you're going to make me put on the member goal and see what's going on, see if it's up to date. 63. It's not 63. It's 67. So I have to fix that in just a moment. Let me get back to that. Let me address that. And let me double check to make sure it is 67 with Gus joining the channel as a member. Already been a subscriber for a long time. Thank you for that, Gus. But now also a member of Chris White Africa. So let's see what we get as this thing loads up for me here. Just want to double check on the actual number of members. Thank you. So faster internet connection, 67 members. Very good. So let me go back and update that member goal. See if I can get that fixed and reset it. Here we go. Come on. Current amount. Where's this at? Goal. It's not letting me reset. It's not letting me reset. That's odd. Anyway. Goal. It's not letting me reset. Okay. End goal. Okay. Chris White memberships. Let's do it again. Goal is 75, and we're at 67 at the moment. 75, and we are at 67. We'll say 66 because that's where we started today at. So we'll end this on the day. Month is 07. The day is 12/2020. There we go. All right. So sorry, folks. That's how all these things you have to do to get this thing to work. Right. There you go, 66. That was before Gus joined, so we're at 67 now. Thank you so much for joining, Gus. Really appreciate you becoming a member. Let's see what else we got here. Gas bag. Somebody like that gas bag. Brett says Joe Biden has not been a bad politician, but nowadays he doesn't know where he is most of the time. I believe that he has dementia. I agree he has dementia or some other mental capacity limitation, and actually feel sad for the man. But I think he's been a terrible politician. He's a plagiarist. He's a liar. He supported lots of legislation that has been harmful to the black community, yet pretends he's a friend of the black community. So I don't know how he squares that. But I appreciate the comment, though, Brett. Ina says, very cold. Colder tomorrow. Wow. That's that cold front that came in from the South Atlantic. Looked pretty impressive. Hendrick said he's been watching paint dry. It's more entertaining than Jimmy Kimmel. Well, I would agree with that. Keith says, I need to limit this to 4 hours. Otherwise, ha, 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 ha. I haven't done any of that long in a while. All right. Rudy Ruth says that was predicted they would go for retirement. Yep, absolutely. Did you ever get adjusted to the reverse climate when you were in Southern Africa? Yeah, actually pretty quickly, Brett. I adjusted to it pretty darn quickly. Let's see. The first time I moved to Southern Africa, I actually got there in what should have been the fall or late summer here, and it was winter there. So the weather was about the same, a little nicer in Southern Africa. And then we quickly went into summertime. So, yeah, I adjusted fine. It's just even now when I travel and it's winter in the Northern Hemisphere, summer in the Southern Hemisphere and vice versa, you just got to remember to take the right clothing with you. That's the key. Some people forget to take the right clothing, and that becomes quite a problem for them. Let's see. We'll take them 5 years to deplete the pension funds. Maybe. We'll see. Gus says, let them come and take it. History taught us what happens when we have nothing to lose. Oh, that's a good point. That's a good and scary point. Okay. Bruce says, I've been saying for a long time, people need to get their pensions out and sell your property. Yep. The ANC and the EFF do not present the average black African. The average black African in South Africa or any other country is not anti-white. Well, yeah, I don't disagree with you, Brett. And in fact, I think I'm not anyone that's ever made that claim, having lived all over Africa. Most people I know in Africa really don't have an issue with that. But people do try to take advantage of you based on your appearance or your race, regardless of where you're at, whether you're white or black in Africa, or anywhere in the world for that matter. Let's see. Bruce Basters, many black Africans do support Afroreform and don't consider Afroreform racist. Well, that's because Afroreform is not racist, and obviously they can think. Lauren Hosford, they get huge kickbacks from inflated tenders for coal and diesel. Between that, the overinflated redundant workforce, there's no money left for maintenance and construction. And never mind the fact that virtually all white engineers and those in leadership positions have been forced out of Eskom because of their racist policies. Absolutely. Well, welcome, Lauren. I don't recall seeing you in here before. Pleasure to have you aboard with us. So happy to have you. Notorious G is here. Was mentioned in Italy that the mafia realized the best way to rob a bank was to own it. Hence the ANC and ABC. Yeah, well, pensions and owning state banks and providing more state banks. Nice typing skills, Chris. What's that on? What did I type? Brett says, have you ever been to Zambia? What are your thoughts about its country and its government? It seems like the West is pushing Zambia away because Zambia's homophobia. I don't agree with that. I don't think really anybody's paying much attention to Zambia these days. Zambia's biggest export, most important commodity that's had for the world historically has been copper, and it's not as critical to the world economy as it once was. And there's also other sources of copper like Chile and other countries. But the U.S. has its own copper as well. But yeah, so Zambia is really not high on folks' radar. I would say outside of Africa, and even in Africa, it's not high on the radar. The homophobia is an African thing. Homosexuality is not viewed in a positive light anywhere in Africa. Anywhere in Africa. In fact, it's protected in the South African Constitution, but 9 out of 10 South Africans do not like homosexuality. So there's a problem. Given that only about 5% of South Africans are probably homosexual, that means that not many more people who aren't homosexual don't have an issue with it. Anyway, if you want to lose an argument in Africa, all you have to do is come out in favor of homosexuality, and then you're on the losing end of the argument in every country in Africa, hands down. Christian, Muslim, animist, it doesn't matter. It's not a winning argument in almost any of Africa. So if you are trying to advance that agenda, then you have to do it in a more surreptitious way, or you're going to run into roadblocks. Zambia, I have been to Zambia. I've been to Lusaka, and I've been to other parts of Zambia a few times, and I found the Zambians to be interesting. But they have some really strange things tied to their early socialist past, including, this odd part of the military, which is really like civilians that are in uniform. It's kind of strange, really strange. But Zambia is an interesting place. A number of Zimbabwean farmers moved to Zambia, which of course famously was Northern Rhodesia previously. And so a number of them moved to Northern Rhodesia and had almost an immediate impact on the economy after purchasing land in Zambia and making it productive. Land that had laid fallow or had not produced much. The Zimbabwean farmers, white commercial farmers, had gone there, and a few dozen of them, a few hundred actually, I think, in the end. But they had a great impact on agricultural production, which perversely meant that the kwacha increased in value because the economy improved. At the same time, the prices for copper had went up. This was around 2004 to 2007. The Chinese started buying up all the commodities around the world, so copper prices went up in addition to agricultural products, and the kwacha appreciated in value, which had a perverse negative effect on Zambia. Because it made it more difficult for them to do business with their currency being stronger. It cost them. Their exports became pricier, and so it kind of backfired in some ways. But Zambia is an interesting place. Famously, Zambia is the last country in Africa to have a white president. That's right. Look it up. Their vice president was briefly the president for 2 months. When the president died in office and he was a vice president, he became the president. Yep, the last white president in Africa as of this point. Apparently, Hyundai says not all blokes in Cape Town are gay. Well, I would imagine not. Otherwise, there wouldn't be any blokes in Cape Town. You're not reproducing. Tin says work on occasion in Zambia with cement factories built their kilns, and here in South Africa use tons of copper to build furnaces for Anglo-American. Okay, cool. Somebody's going to catch. Who's going to catch COVID-19? What was the country with the worst climate you ever visited? Oh, gosh. Well, climate for me, wouldn't be cold. It would be hot. And I would say that I wouldn't. Well, gosh. Oh man, there's some really hot places in Africa. Some truly, truly hot places. The most uncomfortable place I've ever been might have been Saudi Arabia, with the temperature well over 40 degrees. Just brutal, brutal, brutal. When I was wearing a uniform, so I didn't care for that. That was perhaps one of the hottest places I've ever been. Amongst the most uncomfortable places, I would say that Chad was just nasty, brutal when I was in Chad, but I was just there briefly and just at the airport, and I was like, that's tough. Liberia was difficult from a climate standpoint because it's always hot, it's always humid, and it rains 7 months of the year. So that's a tough thing to get accustomed to. The cold, I deal with the cold, that's fine. Let's see. Brett says, not just African, Jamaica homosexuality is looked at. No, yeah, I agree with you. I wasn't just singling out Africa. I'm just making the point about Africa. The reason I make the point is that when I was stationed in Uganda, the government passed a law that President Museveni said he would never sign. The legislature passed a law making homosexuality a crime, and also it went beyond simply criminalizing the act. It criminalized knowledge of homosexuality. So let me give you an example. If you were a healthcare worker in Uganda under this law, which eventually was passed, and this led to a rift in the diplomatic relations between Barack Obama and Yoweri Museveni on epic proportions, ladies and gentlemen. If you worked in the healthcare sector and say you had a client who came in and was ill and you ran a battery of tests, malaria and other things, and you also ran HIV tests just to be safe, and the test came back and the person's HIV positive. Well, normally the protocol is you give a second test. Normally do a rapid test kit, and then if you get a positive result, you do an ELISA or blood test, a serum test. Or you could do a PCR, polymerase chain reaction, but that's pricey and not available in most places. But you do the second test, usually the blood test. If that comes back positive, you bring the client in, you sit down with them, and you have to break the news to them that they're HIV positive and what that means and what their responsibilities are to others. Well, just picture this scenario. Let's say you're in Uganda and you have a client who comes in and he tests positive, and you turn to the client and say, I'm sorry, I have to let you know that you're HIV positive based on your test results. Now let me tell you what happens now. And that's a difficult thing for someone to hear. I mean, it's like hearing that a family member's passed away, or you've been told you have a cancer diagnosis, or you have terminal cancer. Very difficult thing to process for human beings. And people process it differently. But one way that people process it is if you have a man sitting there and goes, oh my God, what am I going to tell Steve? Whoa, Steve, male, must be a homosexual. If later they find out that you were treating this person and didn't disclose to the government that this person was a homosexual, you were subject to 7 years confinement as a felon in prison. Yeah. For having knowledge of homosexuality and not conveying it, not narking, not dropping dimes on it to the government, you can be convicted of a felony. That's the law that they passed in Uganda. And Obama lost his mind over it, and rightly so. It's a stupid law. It's not right. And anyway, so my point is that if you want to lose an argument in Africa, go around and promote homosexuality. Lose, lose, lose every time. I'm not arguing in favor or against the homosexuality, and those who want to assume that, you're a fool for assuming that. I'm simply sharing with you a reality in Africa. This is not a winning argument. If you want to talk about, colonialism was wonderful, good luck on that. That's not a winning argument either in most of Africa. You might get some people to agree with it. My point is that you got to pick your battles and know what you're talking about. Christos says, yeah, Saudi's crap hot, just came back from an exercise, 39 degrees, 10:30 at night. Ouch, ladies and gentlemen, that is brutal. That's the Saudi that I remember. Yep. On the upside, you can't do anything in Saudi Arabia. You're not allowed to do anything at all. It's miserable there. No alcohol, no carousing, no nightclubs. But yes, we know that there's actually more to that scene than we just talked about. But on the upside, most people are paid pretty well. Yep. All right. Keith says, Chris, was the buying up of resources likely to be the impact? Was the buying up of resources likely to be impact the world now, or part of the Communist under your plan? No. The 2007 to 2008 sucking up of resources, everything, rice, copper, steel, iron, everything you could get their hands on, the Chinese were buying. Well, it's because their economy had been growing so fast that they were having problems with the supply chain, keeping the raw materials in China. So they bought up everything they could, which drove up the prices of commodities across the board. Virtually every commodity price skyrocketed. And then when the 2008 financial crisis came, it all collapsed, which had a devastating impact on commodity suppliers like countries in Africa. Colonialism is wonderful. Ha, ha, ha. Yep. Morton says, go to Kuwait. Some nights the temperature does not go. Yeah, I've been to Kuwait. You're telling Christo that? Yeah. I'm sure that Christo's probably been there. They're right next door. Yeah, 45 degrees, just brutal. Brett says many people make moonshine in the bathrooms in the foreign. Yeah, I know. I didn't want to go into depth there and expose people. And there's more than just that going on. Sky Greg was in Kuwait during February. Temperatures 50. 50. Can you imagine, ladies and gentlemen? 50 degrees Celsius. That's absolutely insane temperature. By the way, for those who are curious, I am wearing a Namibia rugby jersey today. There you go. That's a Velvich's jersey from the 2015 Rugby World Cup. This is a road jersey, actually the one that they wore against the All Blacks at the Olympic Stadium in London. I was at that game, but didn't have this jersey. I didn't get this until after the World Cup was over. Yeah, so there you go. Let's see what else we got here. Ooh la la. You like that, huh? Anyway, so there was some news I want to bring you. Now, I already brought you this discussion, but now let's talk about the next thing, okay? All right, folks. So this is another thing to talk to you about on the news front today. So for those who may or may not have caught this, let me do this very quickly here. Bring this up here so I can keep finding this link here. All right, so there we go. Are you guys aware of this? Goya, which is a Hispanic-owned food company with $1.5 billion in annual sales, employs 4,000 people. It's the largest Hispanic-owned business in the United States in the food sector, is now being boycotted. Goya Foods is facing a swift backlash after its chief executive officer, Robert Unanue, praised Donald Trump at a White House event on Thursday. Almost immediately, Twitter exploded with users both famous and not reminding Unanue of Trump's history of derogatory comments and harsh policies towards Hispanics, most notably the administration's policy of separating immigrant families at the U.S.-Mexican border. Okay, so talk about distortion. Now, this is from Penn Live, which is a local Pennsylvania news source. But let me point out that this actually came from the Associated Press. The story is not from Penn Live. This is a syndicated story. And let me talk about the issues I have with this. First off, Trump's history of derogatory comments and harsh policies towards Hispanics. What harsh policies towards Hispanics? He doesn't have any harsh policies towards Hispanics. That's a lie. Notably, administration's policy separating immigrant families at the U.S.-Mexico border. No, these are criminal aliens who cross into the country. You do not put children in the same prison cell that you put adults. So, of course, people are separated. When you're arrested for a crime in the United States or anywhere else around the world, ladies and gentlemen, when you're arrested for a crime, your children don't accompany you to booking and go to jail unless they've committed a crime. Then they go into juvenile hall. When you are arrested for a crime such as invading a country unlawfully and detained, you're not put with children. Of course, you're separated from children. If you're foolish enough to take your children along for the crime you've committed, even if they are your children, in many cases not even their children, then this is what happens. So these are, once again, lies and distortions by a media, but this is what the media reports. And so this is what started this whole thing. So let me continue with that. So Twitter exploded. According to NBC News, Trump hosted a group of Hispanic supporters at the event, including politicians, business magnates, a day after meeting with Mexican President Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador. Goya Foods CEO Robert Unanue at the event announced a donation of 1 million cans of chickpeas and 1 million pounds of food and other food to food banks. So look at that. 1 million cans of chickpeas and another 1 million pounds of food the corporation is donating to the needy. And what do they get for it? They get attacked by the likes of this gas bag. All right, ladies and gentlemen, talk about preening gas bags. There you go. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the failed bartender who was incapable of managing her finances until she became a member of Congress and her salary rose to an astronomical level, and she still can't balance her finances. But Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the failed bartender, but member of the House of Representatives, the preening gas bag member of the House of Representatives, says, "Oh, look, it's the sound of me Googling how to make your own adobo." Yes, okay, that's her response to this. So she's calling, along with others, for a boycott of the company. So this is what I had to say in response on Twitter. "Oh, look, it's the sound of a fascist bigot's keyboard posting her latest hate-filled tweet. By the way, one does not look at sound. You might turn your head when you hear it, but you listen, something this bartender seems incapable of doing, listening." Kind of ironic, isn't it? Isn't bartenders that we go to listen, to pay a close ear to our worries at the bar? This preening gas bag has the inability to listen. So now what's happening is that they want to go after this company. The Democrats are calling for a boycott of Hispanic-owned food company Goya after the CEO praises Donald Trump. Can you believe that? A Hispanic company. So as I've warned people, ladies and gentlemen, it doesn't matter where you are on the political spectrum. It doesn't matter what you believe in. It doesn't matter who you are or what you say. First, in the 1960s, the leftists came after the state. That's who they attacked. In the 1970s, it was the nuclear family. Then in the 80s, they began the assault on Christianity. That's right. They began the assault on Christianity. Get the camera back here. There we go. So, sorry, I had to get that back. So in the 60s, they attacked the state. In the 70s, it was the nuclear family. Then in the 1980s, they began an assault on Christianity in a major way, demonizing what was known as the moral majority, led by Jerry Falwell. Then it was conservatives, followed instantly by attacks on Republicans, and then Tea Party supporters. So far, about a third of this country has no problem with all of those groups they've attacked. The hatred picked up pace with attacks on WASP, white Anglo-Saxon Protestant males, and then gender-based hatred directed at men with the Me Too movement. Then symbols came. At first, the symbols were something that even a reasonable person would say, okay, that's kind of wrong. Then the symbols were of the very republic itself, including statues of abolitionists, people who called for the end of slavery and fought for the end of slavery, including people like Frederick Douglass, one of the greatest Americans in history of the United States, a black man, a former slave, and an abolitionist. George Washington, the founder of the nation, for the sin of owning slaves in the 18th century, as if it was a novel concept. Watch. Eventually, just like the Taliban, they'll even topple their supposed inspiration when they take down statues of Stalin in New York, which are currently unmolested. But you watch. This isn't about these people. This isn't about a moral standard. This is about deconstructing and destroying the institutions, the very institutions that exist around the world. Imagine this. In the United States, where 73% of the USA is white, although technically it's higher than that, but 70% is white, yet the media, Hollywood, and politicians demonize whites because of the color of their skin. Isn't that racism? Isn't that bigotry? Pay attention, folks. Eventually, they'll come for you too. That's right. They'll come for everyone. And if you're not a serf listening to their dictates and doing what they tell you to do, they'll come after you. That's the reality. So they're going after the largest Hispanic food company in the United States with 1.5 billion sales. Now, what's interesting about this, and this is what I want to talk about, is that as they go after Goya, the Hispanic company. There's actually something in this article which I want to point out. That's not it. I want to see if I can find this here, but I'm not finding it. But anyway, I'll read it to you. So this was in the article from Penn Live, and they said the company founded in 1936 by European immigrants. Now let that sink in for a moment, ladies and gentlemen. European immigrants. What does that mean? Okay, let me translate that for you. Now, it's not a dog whistle. It's none of that silly nonsense that the left likes to. I'm going to make it clear for you. The article says founded by European immigrants who until recently would have been labeled as Hispanic immigrants. Both of them are Spanish. The wife immigrated to Puerto Rico where she lived. The husband immigrated to Puerto Rico. Both came from Spain. They met, they married, and then they immigrated to New York. And in 1936, they founded Goya Foods. And now it's the largest food company owned by Hispanics in the country with 4,000 employees, 1.5 billion in sales. But now, pretend Hispanics, faux Hispanics, pseudo-Hispanics like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez decide that it's appropriate for them to destroy them because the CEO of the company, the fourth generation ownership in the family of this private company, had the temerity to say something positive about Donald Trump. So in their cancel culture, in their hatred, in their bile, and their bigotry, their solution is not discourse, but to attack the livelihood and the income all the employees who work for this wonderful company. Now, over the years, I've bought Goya beans. Not my favorite, but they're good. Guess what? They've got my business now into perpetuity because of these slugs. So this is what I wrote on Parler. As I started the hashtag Buy Goya. In fact, I did do that, ladies and gentlemen. So Buy Goya. Buy Goya. Hashtag BUYGOYA foods. Those are two hashtags. Now, I started the first one. I don't know if I'm the first one to come up with it, but I started. And then the second one I noticed was already there. But on my post on Parler, I said, as angry, hate-filled political turds attack anything they deem to offend their overly sensitive and fragile worldview, their cancel culture and fascist conduct marches on virtually unchallenged. Well, enough is enough. As pseudo-Latinos like AOC, who now thinks she's black, do you remember that? She's suddenly claiming she's black, not Hispanic. Now, to be fair, some blacks are considered, or some Hispanics are considered black, some are considered white. It's their choice how they define themselves. But she suddenly wasn't Hispanic a few weeks ago. She's black now because of Black Lives Matter, one presumes. But don't forget that. But as pseudo-Latinos like AOC attack a successful Hispanic-owned company, we will not listen to their hate-filled calls and bigotry. Now, this is the quote that was in this story. Trump's history of derogatory comments and harsh policies towards Hispanics, most notably the administration's policy separating immigrant families at the U.S.-Mexico border. Lies, lies, and more lies. Selective use of the English language for political purposes. And once again, as I said, founded in 1936 by European immigrants, which until recently would have said Hispanic immigrants. But notice the effort to slice off this group and to delegitimize them because, God forbid, being from Europe, they might be white. Yeah, intentional racism and bigotry is what you're seeing. Calling Hispanic immigrants European. Yes, they're European, of course. They're also Hispanic. And that takes primacy over being European. Who comes to America and says, what's your nationality? Well, I'm European. That's right. I'm proudly a member of the European Union. That's right. We're proud to be in the European Union. Yeah. And in fact, in the European Union, we got Hemsbach, and they're our friends. Nobody says that nonsense. You're Spanish. You're Italian. You're Lithuanian. You're Latvian. French, whatever you are. But no one says I'm European. That's ridiculous. Anyway, it's not a nationality. It's a silly leftist dream. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. That's what's happening with Goya Foods as they attempt to delegitimize it. Now, the irony is that Goya Foods is actually looking to sell itself until recently. Let me show you this one very quickly. So here you go. This is an article from last October. Goya Foods in talks to be sold to the Carlyle Group for $3.5 billion. The only reason that Goya wasn't sold, ladies and gentlemen, is because the CEO said that it wasn't enough money. Yep. It was supposed to be $3 billion. Then he wanted $3.5 billion. And then the CEO, Robert Udine, drove a hard bargain, insisting America's largest Hispanic-owned food company was worth as much as $4 billion. So that's the reason that it was not sold to the Carlyle Group. Otherwise, Goya wouldn't even be owned by Hispanics, and this wouldn't have been an issue. They wouldn't have been able to shut down the conversation. So there's another super chat from Brett. Thank you so much for that, Brett. That puts us up to 103 super chats. You're single-handedly pushing us towards 200. Yeah, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, that 100 super chats was just in the first 3 weeks, almost a month. So thank you so much for those 100 super chats. Brett, thank you for the 3 of them today. The $1.99 super chat. My thoughts on Ilhan Omar. Yeah, Ilhan Omar is coming on a lot of criticism, mostly because she seems to be a Manchurian candidate. The person who's benefited immensely from our generosity, our kindness in giving her asylum. Her country doesn't even border our country. She's from Somalia. She was born in Somalia, a country full of all sorts of chaos and discord. I don't think you're going to find anybody that's honestly going to claim that Somalia is a success in any fashion other than exporting people. But Ilhan Omar came to this country. We allowed her to come here. I don't know the facts, but it's been purported, and there are court cases pending, and there's suits filed, and there's lots of news reporting that apparently she married her brother. Yeah, incest. Married her brother and was a bigamist, married to 2 different men simultaneously. I don't know if that's true. That's what's purported in the press. What I'm saying is that she runs for Congress in a state that was 90% white, but then we allowed lots of immigrants come in from South Asia and then also now from East Africa, and so the dynamics have changed greatly. And she becomes a member of Congress. And she runs around and she lies about America. She's an anti-Semite. Now that I'll say about her. I've heard her statements and they're anti-Semitic. They're against Jewish people. And so that's a fact. That's established. But what I will say is that my thoughts on her, I think that she ought to resign. She's a disgrace. She is misusing the office of the House of Representatives for her personal objectives, which are counter to the laws the Constitution, the norms, the values, and the mores of this society. And if she doesn't like it, we can arrange a flight for her back to Somalia, since she seems so fond of trying to turn America into Somalia. Why is it people come from broken countries and always try to screw up the countries they go to? It's kind of like people from California, leaving California and fleeing to Texas and Idaho and Colorado and destroying the politics there with their stupid leftist politics. Not all, but many of them. Things didn't work where you came from. Why are you trying to impose your broken values on other people? Anyway, so there you go. Yep, married her brother. You heard me correctly. Married her brother. That is correct. And she committed immigration fraud to get here. Let's see what else we got here. Ilhan Omar is the politician that threatens USA the most, not AOC. No, Nancy Pelosi is the politician that threatens America the most, although it seems like she's actually kind of lost these days. Heinrich says, it seems the hatred of bigots knows no limits. I agree with you. Now, what's funny about this, so this is, Heinrich, let me put this in perspective. So you'll find idiots, leftist pigs, who will run around and call people just on their appearance. So they'll look at me and go, racist, racist. But why isn't I'm the one standing up for black South Africans? I'm the one standing up for Hispanics in America when they're being abused. The one who stands up for Candace Owens. The one who stands up for the Hodge twins. The list goes on and on. Why? Because those people are reasonable, right people who don't look at people and make their decisions based on the color of their skin. Unlike the leftists who pretend to be fuzzy teddy bears. Ooh, inclusivity, diversity. Yeah. No, it's not about that. It's about control, ladies and gentlemen. That's what it's always been about. It's always been about control. They want to control us. They want to control you. They want to be the ones in charge because they're so brilliant. They're so fantastic. They're so accomplished. They're so wonderful. Now, utter nonsense. Utter nonsense. Don't listen to that nonsense. Anyway, so that's, Ilhan Omar is a dangerous person, as is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And they're not alone. There's others. Presley is another one, but she doesn't get the attention that a lot of others get. Anyway, folks, I did a video yesterday, 2 videos, in case you missed them. I did a video about the issue of student visas, because once again, the press is lying. And their willing accomplices this time in the university system are out there working hand in hand, hat in glove with the leftists, helping them spread lies and misinformation about the Trump policy and the U.S. government's policy, specifically this issue of international student visas. So let me share that with you guys very quickly. That's the link for that video if you haven't had a chance to check it out. So there you go. That's the link to the international student visa issue and explained in clear terms. And also, by the way, if you watch this video, you'll see that I say not kind things about the Trump administration for those clowns who think that I'm a Trump shill. This one here actually criticized the Trump administration for a boneheaded public relations failure by doing this. So there you go. So that's on that. Now, this one here is probably less interest to many of you. It's interest to my military colleagues and those who have an interest in defense. But the second one is about the Super Tucano acquisition by Nigeria, which is buying 12 A-29 Super Tucano light attack aircraft. I did both of those. They've had rather light viewership. So I thought I'd share that here today with you guys. I don't know that those appeal to many people unless you happen to have a child who's going to university in the States or would like to go to university in the States. So let me see what else we got here. Brett says, Ozzy Obishi is a disgrace. Ilhan is a disgrace to USA and the entire world. If you ask me, she needs to resign from Congress. Brett, we are simpatico on that one. No space between us on that description. The socialism is actually the foundation to communism. It's progress. Even the liberals in the States are now having a hard time with the hardcore left. Yeah, but it took them a long time, Nostalgic Binar. It took them a very long time to wake up. Folks, thanks for tuning in. Approaching 48 minutes here in the stream. I've got a good audience tonight. Thank you so much for that. My apologies for those of you who missed the special feature with Giselle earlier. It was fantastic. Some people here in the stream, I think Erica's here. Erica saw it. Erica, can you confirm that was a brilliant stream? Not because of me, because Giselle was a fantastic host. We got to watch the videos, even though the sync was off a little bit. But that video is now on hiatus because it's been blocked. So I've already disputed the blocking. Hopefully it will be lifted and we'll get resumption. But that's unfortunate because the way videos work on YouTube is out of the gate, you've got a head of steam and people are going to watch it. They usually watch it the first 24, 48, 72, maybe 96 hours, and then all videos tail off. There are exceptions to that, like my Things Are Getting Scary in South Africa video, which has 35,000 views. That one went for 10 straight days. And in fact, after 4 days, the audience increased much higher. But that's an unusual situation. I've got a few others had 12, 15,000 views, similar. But most videos, they have a lifespan of about 3 or 4 days. And that's unfortunate because this was a really good stream. It was Giselle and I, not Johan and I. It was Giselle and I. And so for those who watch previous streams, you know that Johan and I get chatting a bit on there. This was Giselle, in her own words, talking about the inspiration for her songs and her music. So hopefully we can get that unblocked and you guys can watch it. And as soon as it is, I'll announce it so that people can go back and watch it. So those of you who watched it, Erica says brilliant in all caps, and I agree. It was fantastic. Erica, he never got Giselle's. No, Gareth, of course I had Giselle's permission. They're the ones that came on the program. Where do you think I got the videos from, Gareth? They sent me the videos. In fact, I got one of the videos after the program started, and I got the last video about 30 seconds before the stream started. So I was busy running the software, doing the intros, welcoming my guest, bringing in the stream, and also downloading and then loading up a video, all while it was happening at the same time. I have the permission. I have permission, exclusive use of all music that Giselle has produced, whether it's a music video or just the audio. It's just that the third party that's responsible for policing copyright infringement is doing a subpar job. Hopefully they'll pick up and fix this soon. Anyway, one of Pakistan's key founders named Muhammad Ali Jinnah was not devout until it became secular. Yeah, now that happens. So she knew you were talking to her too, huh? All right. Yeah, I saw you, Tunes. I saw you pop in for a little bit and you took off. Damn, I shared that video on social media platforms. Yeah, that sucks, Endo. Hopefully it will get fixed and then that'll still be valid. But I'll let you guys know as soon as I get more information and it's approved, okay? So thank you for that. No bullshit, do not marry him. Huh? Well, then please explain the federal lawsuit against her for that. Anyway, the investigation. There's a plane that flew over the stadium when Manchester City played Bournemouth. I think it was. The plane had a banner behind it saying "White Lives." Are you serious? I didn't hear about that, Duvall. That's interesting. Yep. Let me see. What else we got here? Cool. I tried to do a great job promoting her. So thanks to you, those of you who tuned in and saw that. That was a lot of fun. She was fantastic. Oh, by the way, speaking of other news, let's bring this one up now. Here we go. This one here I'd like to share with you guys very quickly. Here you go. Thousands of North Carolina voters double voted, Watchdog Group finds. It's an article by Fred Lucas in the Daily Signal. Thousands of voters in North Carolina voted twice in one or both of the past 2 elections, according to a court case in a key battleground state. Public Interest Legal Foundation, an election integrity group, announced Thursday that it had filed a brief in U.S. District Court for the Middle District of North Carolina outlining the number of double votes. A total of 16,700 duplicate votes were cast in the 2016-2018 elections, according to an audit by the Watchdog Group based on public records. North Carolina was home to a disputed voter fraud case in 2018. Yeah. Yep, there you go. So speaking of voter fraud, in the 2016 presidential election in North Carolina, about 9,700 voters were credited with voting twice. Of these cases, about half, 5,000, were mail-in ballots. Mail-in ballots. So they went to the polling station and they mailed in a ballot. 2 years later, in the 2018 midterm election, about 7,000 voters were credited with voting twice. Of those, 2,900 were mail-in votes. Anyway, I thought I'd mention that and show that because someone questioned the argument about voter fraud and mail-in voter fraud in particular. And so there you go, ladies and gentlemen. There's no question about it. It's real. It happens. And it happens in far wider numbers than we know about. And we have states in this country now, like California, seeking to have exclusively mail-in ballot elections. Fraud, pervasive fraud, and the undermining of the vote. Every American, whether they're white, brown, black, Asian, whatever their hue, whatever their religion, whatever their faith, if they're lawful, registered, legitimate voters in this country, not a single person should have their vote undermined by criminals who seek to disrupt and tarnish our election. They should be prosecuted to the fullest of the law. Snaking his tail. Why does the U.S. not have a national ID card, Morton Christie? Well, because it's a very complicated thing. We don't have a national ID card because that's not a power given to the federal government. The Constitution clearly states in Article 10 that powers not specifically assigned to the federal government revert to the individual states. Remember, this is a union of states, not a country that created states. It is a union of states. Sovereign states became members of this union. First under the Articles of Confederation, which lasted briefly because the central government was far too weak. It couldn't function. The states did what they wanted and worked against the union's interest. So our founding fathers came together and drafted the Constitution at the Constitutional Convention, 1787, and it was enacted in 1789. After 3/4 of the states, 9 of the 13 states had ratified the Constitution. Delaware became the first state to enter the Union after ratifying the Constitution. And so the reason that the federal government doesn't issue national identity cards, it doesn't have the power to do that. Now, there's lots of things the federal government has done that it doesn't have the power to do that violate the Constitution, and people just don't bother to process it or pursue it. But this is something the federal government doesn't do. That said, the government does have the power to issue an identity document for international travel, of course, which would be a passport. But you cannot require Americans to have a passport. There's no basis to have a passport because a passport allows Americans to travel abroad, not for internal travel. States issue identity cards based on state law. They also issue the most common form of identity, which is a driver's license. That's often the most accepted form of identification. So people use their driver's license. But each state issues, and each territory issues their own driver's license with their own standards. Now, they're pretty common. They're pretty standard across the board. But each state does issue its own. And in fact, you're not allowed to own, most states have a law prohibiting you from having a driver's license in another state. The reason for that is in the past, people with drink-drive offenses would lose their license in one state and go and get it in another state and then drive on that license. So now there's reciprocal agreements for fines, for traffic fines, for evading law enforcement and such. So that's usually the most common form of identification, not the only one. I carry 2 forms of identification with me each and every day. That would be my state driver's license, which until recently was Ohio, but now it's Pennsylvania. And I carry my military ID card, and I've been carrying that since I went on active duty. The military ID card is essential because it proves that I was a serving member. Now it proves I'm a veteran. Also, if I'm trying to get a discount from a business that offers it to veterans or military, I can get the discount by showing my ID card. And then beyond that, for access to federal property installations where I have a right to be or a need to be for a business purpose, I'm allowed to enter with my military ID card. Now, a lot of those places you can also enter with a civilian driver's license, but some of them require an escort or you have to be a guest, whereas it's more permissive for a member who's inside the wire, a member of the team, or a retiree. So that's the 2 forms of identification I carry all the time. Yeah. But I don't carry my passport unless I'm leaving the country. So there you go. All right. So let's see what else. Oh, Brett's out of here. Well, take care, Brett. Thanks for the super chats. Most election fraud is linked to the left and far left. That's true. Mail-in ballots. No, I can't imagine South Africa. What investments does the U.S. have in South Africa? Energy, agriculture, science, Azioba. There's not a lot of any of those. There's not much in the way of energy in South Africa. There's some effort to do some solar photovoltaic, but very little that's U.S. money. Agriculture, the U.S. doesn't have a lot in the way of agriculture invested. And science, I don't really have the answer on that one because that's a little harder to parse. I mean, Sasol is involved in science. That's not a U.S. investment, just as an example. So usually chemical companies, science involved, medical companies. But the U.S. does have businesses and business ties there to sell things like aircraft and computers, software, things like that. We have other activities like Google and Google setting up, Amazon setting up in South Africa. Amazon's already there. They're expanding their operations. Even though they don't sell in South Africa, they do have operations in South Africa. Let's see. Say something to be someone. Gareth says, what was it recently started issuing some states? I don't know what you're talking about, Gareth. Hey, Lazon, good to see you there. Mail-in ballots will be absolute failure. Well, they're a failure here, too. It's a complete disaster. The damage it does to elections and to the electorate is really, really sad. Hey, folks, listen, it's Friday. Lekker Vrijdagnacht, yeah? Lekker Vrijdagnacht. So welcome. I hope you're enjoying your Friday evening. Relax. Kick off your boots. Enjoy yourself. Crack open, and just for the brew, crack open a Castle Lager. Oh, I'm sorry, brew. A Castle Lager. That's right. And maybe you can enjoy it in the garage or the garage. Enjoy your Castle Lager. Or if you're a beer connoisseur, perhaps you spend the extra R2 for a quality drink, and you can quaff down a Windhoek Lager. Now you're talking a real beer. Anyway, that's for you in Southern Africa, which you can get in Botswana, Namibia, and South Africa quite easily. Windhoek Lager. Only beer I ever bought in Botswana. Anyway, folks, so enjoy yourself. And it's a beautiful Friday evening. A lekker Freitagnacht. I hope you guys are enjoying that. Hendo says, no Coke and beer. Well, that is my black label. That's right. When I have a Schuss beer, it's a black label. That's exactly what it is. Twin says, Windhoek is nice. Yeah, it's a lovely place. Let's see what else. Let me see. Whoop, whoop. Epstein, was he working for Mossad? I have no idea. I don't know why Mossad would associate itself with a disreputable clown like that. They have no need for him. Mossad is quite effective at what they do. They don't need to turn to scuzzballs like Jeffrey Epstein to accomplish their mission. They can do that with more reputable and less unsavory actors. Certainly on this side of the Atlantic. In other parts of the world, which they infiltrate Arab terrorist organizations, they do have to rely on unsavory characters. But that isn't the case here. You've got plenty of people who support Israel and are willing to share information with Israel. So it's not a challenge. Let's see. Heinrich says, we are having the first real proper winter rain in the Cape for a long time. Yeah, no, I'm sure it is well. And hopefully it'll recharge the 7 reservoirs that support Cape Town. But that won't fix the water problems in Cape Town, as I mentioned during the so-called water crisis of a couple years ago. And I wrote extensively about and commented heavily about on LinkedIn. I kind of wish I was actually had a YouTube channel then, because I would have talked about it. But when I had this going on 2 years ago, when this was going, it was about 2 years ago, I think it was, the Cape Town thing. Of course, it's climate change. That's why there's no water. No, there's no water because of abject governance from the National Party, the Democratic Alliance, the African National Congress, and then the Democratic Alliance once again for 5 decades. And there were 500,000 people living in Cape Town 100 years ago. Today, there's 3.8 million. You think that might have something to do with why there's no water? It's already a marginal place to begin with. And now you have quintupled, sextupled the population. Not to mention they consume far more water than people did a century ago with washing cars, watering lawns, things that people didn't do 100 years ago except for the ultra wealthy. Not to mention all of the water that's used for industrial consumption. But the problem is greater than rainfall. Rainfall wasn't the problem. There was low rainfall for a period of time. It was a drought, but the drought was exacerbated by mismanagement and misuse of water. There's no Cape Town plan to reuse gray water. What do I mean by gray water? Well, the water runs off the sidewalks through the drains and goes into the sewage. That water can be reused to water lawns, for golf courses, some industrial use, without having to sanitize it to the same level that you would sanitize water for human consumption. And so all that water is simply wasted. It's not recycled. That's a mistake. The pipes are leaking in many parts of Cape Town and the area around there. Pipes that have been in the ground for 50 years or longer in some cases and not replaced. Long overdue. And then you have, of course, the tragedy of the commons, where you have in the townships like Kaixeta, where you have a communal tap sitting, and that communal tap, someone turns it on, and they just leave it running. People walk over, fill their bucket, they're too lazy to turn off. The next person comes, fills their buckets 5 minutes later. In the meantime, hundreds of liters have poured into the ground. Those tragedy of the common situations. And that's a consequence of people not having water piped to their home and then being billed for its consumption. When people pay for water, then they don't waste water, except the ultra rich who don't care. Maybe they will waste it. But when you bill people for water usage and they have to pay for it, then they realize it's a precious resource. And frankly, water does fall out of the sky, but unless you've got a rain catchment sitting there catching the water, falling in a barrel, and you're using that water, then you're paying for water, and you should pay for water. And that's part of the problem here. But yeah, I'm sure folks in the Western Cape are happy to get the water. Good to see the rain. No more TikTok in the USA. I don't know. Is that true? I wouldn't use TikTok. I never recommend it. Let's see what else we got here. Tom says, that's what you carry, Tennessee driver's license and retired ID card. Oh, plus your Lowe's ID card for your discount. Lowe's doesn't make me carry the card when I go to Lowe's. Lowe's is an outdoor, a home improvement store, folks. Big, kind of like the Home Depot, same sort of store, if you're familiar with Home Depot. So anything you want to buy, lumber, plants, wheelbarrows, garden tools, nails, drywall, appliances, trimming, anything in your home, electrical wiring, you can find it at Lowe's. Lowe's gives me a military discount, but I've registered. I just have to show my military ID card, not my Lowe's card. Anyway, all I can afford after the NC destroyed the economy is Zulu beer. Bruce Bosters, that's good. Lauren says, hit the head on the nail, population explosion. Absolutely, Lauren. And it's like that all over South Africa. Listen, the country had 5 million people in 1911. Today, it's got 60 million. Ooh, I'm not good at math, but I think that's 12 times as many people living in South Africa today as there were 100 years ago. Do you think there's 12 times as much rainfall landing in South Africa? Of course not. Too many people, misuse, mismanagement. That's the problem. Yes, climate change does have an impact, but that's not the reason that Cape Town had a water shortage. Not at all. Not even close. All right. Hong Kong virologist flees, accuses Beijing cover-up for coronavirus. Not surprised. Thank you for sharing that. Tunes, my father told me on the border they built water tanks for Bushmen. He sat there, open tap, watching water just flow. Hard to believe there's so much water. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Lowe's, ETT says Lowe's uses phone number. Exactly right. But they do want you to show your ID card. It used to be just, at least locally, they expect me to show my ID card. Garrett says, I think it was confusing with the Real ID Act. Are your passport cards cheaper than passport books? I don't have a passport card. I've never seen one of those things, Hendo. I've had a tourist passport, an official passport, and a diplomatic passport at different times. The only one I have now that's valid is my tourist passport. I've never had a passport card. The Real ID Act, that's something that required the state to issue identification to meet the biometric standards in order to avoid terrorism. And so, in fact, my Pennsylvania driver's license is not a Real ID. Let me see if it's marked on there where you guys can see it without exposing. There you go. All right, so let me do that. I don't know if you'll be able to see this, but let me put it up to the screen. So, let me do it this way. I'll do it this way. It's going to be smart. You don't put your ID card online, folks. Anyway, so let's do that. Okay. All right, so you saw my photo on there. You saw it was me. So you see at the top here, it says, not for Real ID purposes, right there below where it says driver's license. See? Not for Real ID purposes. Yep. That is because you have to pay extra to have the biometric card. And since I have federal identification in the form of a military ID card, I don't need. Now, the problem is this identification card that I just showed you guys, I cannot get on a flight and fly in the United States with that because the federal government won't accept it as identification for those security purposes. I have to have a Real ID. Now, if I paid the extra $60 or $40 to Pennsylvania, I would have gotten a Real ID, which would include the biometric data. But I don't need it. All I have to do is show my military ID card that's federally issued identification, and that will let me get on a plane to travel domestically. When I want to travel internationally, I show my military ID card and my passport. And that's how it works. Am I a pilot? No, but I always wanted to be a pilot. My grandfather was a pilot. He worked in Redstone Arsenal and was the lead engineer on the Saturn V tail assembly for the rocket, the biggest rocket we ever had until recently, that launched the Apollo space program. And he was the lead engineer on the tail assembly. So pretty cool. ID online in Africa? No. Too much waste, especially in Africa. Yeah, but it's all over the world. People just waste things. They waste things. They absolutely do. Let me see what else we got here. Let's see what else. Our driver's license were sold to us in 1999 as an official identity document. They don't have our full names on them. Well, that's crazy. That's crazy. South Africa needs the American Party. Colonel Lyon president. Well, thank you for that. But I assure you I'll have shorter hair and I'll be clean shaven if I run for office. Not going to run around looking like Joe Black, although I need to dye my beard if I want to look like Joe Black, and it's got to get a little bit longer down to about here. But I don't think I'm going to keep it that long. Yeah, so that's the Real ID Act was passed. It's similar to the situation in which foreign countries are required to use biometric standards to prove the provenance of the people who have passports. And this is a system that was introduced after the terrorist attacks of 2001. It became an international standard, which countries accepted, but several countries have failed to live up to those obligations, including famously Nigeria. Many of the stands are also failing to live up to it. And as a consequence, recently the U.S. government, Recently, the U.S. government penalize Nigeria for not coming up to the standards. What they did was they decided that they would no longer allow people who want to immigrate to America to come to America until Nigeria fixed its passport system. Now, of course, members of the House of Representatives, like the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, fraudulently accused the Trump administration of racism in an effort to keep 350 million people out of America, which is a blatant lie. I've debunked that entire story and talked about it in previous videos, so I'm not going to spend time talking about it today. But identification is critically important to determine the provenance of someone, where they actually come from, who they are, so they're actually who they say they are. Particularly in the 21st century, in which identity theft is such an easy thing to accomplish, people have been arrested for crimes that they didn't commit. In famous cases like in Florida, where a gentleman was stopped and pulled over for a supposed traffic violation. They ran the license plate. The police officer came up to him, drug him out of the vehicle, handcuffed him, took him to jail, and charged him with rape, and were extraditing him back to Georgia for raping a minor girl. The man had never been to this town in Georgia, but someone had stolen his identity, got an identification in his name with his identification number, which is not supposed to be identification number, social security number, and then committed a crime. And so when that person was arrested, they used fake identification with a proper name and a proper identification number for someone that lived in a different state. And then that went into a database. And so when this gentleman was pulled over, there was an outstanding warrant for him because the rapist, the child molester, had fled. And so a warrant was issued after they'd been arrested. And this guy, an innocent person who never knew that his identity had been stolen by a clown like this, was arrested, thrown in jail, and spent several days in jail before this was sorted out, and his life was turned upside down. Fingerprinted, charged with being a child molester and a rapist. Didn't do any of that. Nothing to do with it. Never even been to the town in Georgia where it happened. This happens more frequently than you realize, ladies and gentlemen. Millions of people become the victims of identity theft around the world. Hence the importance for having legitimate identification. That's a critically important thing. Now, the reason I can get a not real ID in Pennsylvania is because Pennsylvania is stubborn. In fact, they're one of the last states to implement the real ID. It just took place this past year. And for years, they refused to do it until the federal government said, fine, for the states that refuse to implement the real ID standards, if you don't have either a federal identification card or, which would come from military, for members of the government, things like that, if you don't have a federal identification card, then you will not be able to board an airplane. Why can they do that? Because the federal government has control over all our airports through the Federal Aviation Administration, the FAA. So the federal government can actually control access to airports and boarding planes from a security standpoint. So they can determine what identification is suitable. And if you have a real ID, they'll let you on. If you don't have a real ID, you have to have a U.S. passport. In other words, the federal government has confirmed who you are, even if your state hasn't. So that's the importance of identification card, folks. It's really important. It makes a difference. In fact, identification cards are so important that back in the 1980s, in 1985, there was a young black specialist who was based at Rhein Main Air Base named Pimental. And Specialist Pimental was met up with by a seductress from the Red Army faction who had a few drinks with him in Sachsenhausen in Frankfurt, and then they went back with him to the barracks, but didn't quite get to the barracks, went over in the woods near the air base, ostensibly to have sex, and they murdered him. Now, why did they murder Specialist Pimental, who was black? For his identification card. They took his identification card, and they lifted the adhesive off of it, and they replaced the photograph underneath because it was that easy to do back in those days. Think about Catch Me If You Can, the movie with, what's his name, the actor from the Titanic there. Anyway, Catch Me If You Can. Back in those days, you could use heat, lift the acetate off of it, and you could replace the photo and put another photo under there on top of it. So that's what they did. They put another photo of a Red Army faction person wearing fatigues. They resealed it, and they used that identification card because they couldn't reproduce the identification card itself, the actual card underneath. So they murdered a U.S. service member so they could get on Rhein Main base to explode a bomb, which is what they did. He was murdered for that, for an identification card. It cost him his life. That's how important identification can be. We don't have to watch spy novels and watch spy movies just to see this stuff. It's a true story. Will Hillary Clinton stand for the election for what election on 19 July? What election? Alfie Kadalfi. Welcome, Alfie Kadalfi. You've got the Star of David, the Mogan David, on your ID there. That's interesting. Let's see what else we got here. You run for ambassador, and we'll hook up with you with a nice tie, not made in China. Thank you, Tian. I have lots of ties not made in China. Most of my ties are actually made in Italy. And a bunch of them actually bought when I lived in Italy. In fact, I used to go to a little tie shop in Rome. Fantastic place. All the ties were made in Rome. Little tiny shop that only a few people knew about, but they had really quality ties. And every time I went to Rome, which is at least once every couple months when I was stationed in Italy, we would pop in this shop. It's a shop called Giofa, Giofer, Giofa. And I would go to Giofa and buy these. It's right down the street from the Spanish Steps. If you've ever been to Rome, the big Spanish Steps that are there in the center of Rome, if you went down a side street about 150 meters from the steps themselves, you'd run right into Giofa. Fantastic place. Fantastic place. Military qualification for discount code in my Lowe's card. One less card to show. Oh, okay. Thank you, Tom, for that. Chris and Big Daddy Louie should start a new party in South Africa. Yeah, that'd be cool. I wouldn't mind helping out folks in South Africa. Love to do that. Can we trust NASA? In what respect, Devault? NASA is responsible for meteorological data, for mapping the Earth, and also for space operations. So in what context are you saying can we trust them? I think we can trust NASA, but what specifically? Is there something that you are concerned that they're not telling you or they're not sharing? Springbok tie. Yeah, Springbok tie would be awesome. Garrett says it's another mess our government made. Our passports were also meant to comply with biometrics, but they never shipped them. Yep, exactly right. Okay. Lezan, my mother lost her ID card and Home Affairs will issue a temporary ID, but she can't apply for a new ID card until lockdown. It's a ridiculous. Plus no passport applications either. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. Why? You don't need 1,000 people in the passport office. You can bring a handful of people in that can handle it. Same in the ID card office. And you can be behind glass. You don't have to touch people. That's just stupid. You can maintain distance. That's just hysteria. Another way to make people criminals. And you'll have an expired ID card. Well, your ID card's expired, so clearly this is a fine. Sounds like township mob justice. Brew had something to say, but okay, I'm not sure what the okay was. Let's see. Ana says, ID stolen in armed robbery. Now 4 people use my name and open email accounts. Yeah, there you go. Sorry to hear that, Ana. That's terrible. Number 1, armed robbery. Number 2, that people are using ID card. It's terrible. Vutsarko, good to see you there. I had a PPL, but it lapsed. Small single engine, fixed wing, keeping current is too expensive. Hiring the plane instructor has ballooned out of control. Yeah, Leonardo DiCaprio. Thank you, Gareth. That's who it was. That's who it was. Yep. We did it with our IDs in school. Oh, you did the same thing. Fake IDs. Keith having his passport as ID did not help the guy entering South Africa years ago. 3 weeks in prison. Someone using a stolen passport that he'd already reported lost. Yeah, there you go. Exactly. Exactly right. Guy enters the country and they have him down. Well, and of course, the South African DIRCO is ridiculously notorious for entering false data into their immigration database and incorrectly labeling people who've overstayed their visas for who are entering the country for their first time. All kinds of malfeasance goes on with DIRCO and with their immigration officers at borders. It's really tragic. It's quite a shame to see that sort of thing. So yeah, it's really, really sad to see that. But that does happen in South Africa. And it's unfortunate that that sort of thing does happen. I'm trying to find a link here really quickly, guys. Yeah, there we go. That's the one I'm looking for. Hopefully I can find what I'm looking for here. Yep. Let me see if I can find what he's got here. He's got, doesn't have it listed here. I was looking for something. Huh. Anyway, sorry about that, guys. I was trying to show you something really, because somebody was talking about aviation. I wanted to show you guys this really cool thing. That's what it was. Okay, that's what I wanted. So what I'm going to try to get on the channel here sometime soon is this, folks. You may or may not be familiar with this. This is a company that makes a custom aircraft, and it's from South Africa. So I'm trying to get it to come up. Here you go. Let me pull this up really quickly. There you go. This might be, I may have the founder of this company as a guest on my channel pretty soon. This aircraft, the Sling, was famous for having traversed the world. You may be familiar with that story, but the Sling is a South Africa-based company. And they designed this aircraft, which I don't know the current price, but you could buy a kit for just $26,000 when it was first came out about 8 years ago. That's phenomenally inexpensive to buy a kit to construct an airplane. Can you imagine that? I mean, a laptop costs you $1,000. You know, a good PC is $2,000 for gaming. A car is $20,000, $30,000. But to get an aircraft for just $26,000, what a deal. Now, you got to put it together. It's like Legos. Or you can purchase it already assembled. But the Sling is quite an impressive aircraft. With any luck, I'll be having the owner and the manufacturer, the designer of this aircraft on my channel sometime soon. That would prove to be an interesting guest, I think. What do you guys think? Hopefully you find that interesting. You mow my lawn, just looking for a way out. My lawn is sad. No passport into Mexico. Passport required to return to the U.S. Yeah, that's because Mexico hasn't applied those standards yet. It used to be you didn't have to have a passport to go to Mexico and come back. You did never need a passport to go to Canada and come back until after 9/11. It wasn't even right away. But now, when you go to Canada, you have to show a passport, which caused a lot of consternation because millions of Americans and Canadians cross that border every day, both directions, living in Canada, working in the U.S., living in the U.S., working in Canada, visiting, shopping both places, visiting family on both sides of the border across the entire length of the U.S. border, especially in Ontario, though it's a real problem. So that caused a lot of consternation with folks. Oxtail. I don't like oxtail. Phenomenally thin aluminum on that flying lawnmower. Not a big fan, but cheap to own and run. Yes, it is thin. That's true. Back-to-back phone calls. Oh, Erica, you were gone. Okay, well, welcome back. Not a problem. Glad to see you back here. Futsarko gives you a thumbs up. Yeah, the Sling aircraft. That's what I'm talking about. When you say travel, is that only to Canada and Mexico? Who are we asking here? What are your thoughts on China and South China Sea? Tians is asking me. Well, China and South China Sea is a malicious actor. They have damaged the ecology of the South China Seas by building on top of coral reefs and destroying them and creating artificial islands to build Navy bases there. It's really tragic what the Chinese have been doing in the South China Seas. Not to mention they're asserting the 9-dash line, which is just a total concoction in their minds in the South China Seas. Artificial islands. Here we go. Let me see if I can find a picture of this and show you guys something. Here you go. All right, there we go. Open link. I'm going to show you these islands which were created in the South China Seas. Here you go. Here's one. All right, let me put this back on the screen so you guys can see this. Yeah, this is what China's doing in the South China Sea. So you can see that island right there. Here's the atoll. Look how they cut right through the middle of it for an artificial harbor. They destroyed the atoll there. And this is a reef. So this was the Subi Reef in the South China Sea, part of the Spratly Islands. You can see how they built on top of this reef, damaging it and creating a mess. And that's now an airfield and a Chinese military base located in the South China Sea. Here you go. And look at this. This was in 2015 where they created this artificial island. And now look at it in 2018, 3 years later, how they've developed this airfield and this base. This is nonsense, ladies and gentlemen. This is international waters. And if anything, this is water space that is in the territorial integrity of Vietnam and the Philippines, not China. China's nowhere near this. But this is what the Chinese are up to, ladies and gentlemen. There you go. So I think that's the two pictures I want to show you. Yeah, that's what the Chinese are doing. Building artificial islands and destroying the ecology of the South China Seas and jeopardizing the world's trade. Let me explain what I mean by that. So the South China Sea, I'm going to bring this up very quickly here. I don't want to point something out for you guys. But the South China Sea is one of the most important right-of-ways, thoroughways on the planet in which a huge chunk of the world's commerce travels. Energy travels back and forth, goods, consumer goods, commodities travel through there, and it is critical for the entire world. Now, it's nowhere in the United States, but let me show you something here. Okay, so here we go. Put this screen up here. So I'm going to leave this up so you can see this whole thing. So this is a map of the South China Sea. So you can see my mouse there, and you've got Taiwan is here, and then you've got the Philippines, you've got Vietnam. Here's China. Now, Hainan Island is here. That's part of China. But this is the South China Sea right here, right? The Chinese are building islands down here in the Spratlys, all here, in the Paracel Islands, all down to here. Nowhere near China, claiming this as their own sovereign space. Now, I mention this because these sea lanes here through the South China Sea, watch my mouse, follow it down as I go down and come through Singapore right here, Indonesia, Malaysia, past Kuala Lumpur. That is Straits of Malacca through here is one of the most important sea lanes on the planet, which affects trade with Europe. All of Europe's trade from Asia comes through that strait, all of it. Plus trade to India and to the Middle East and Africa comes through the Straits of Malacca. Also, by the way, one of the most heavily pirated sea lanes on the planet historically. Even when off the coast of Somalia we were talking about piracy, it was nothing compared to Straits of Malacca, which isn't talked about. There are cargo ships that disappear in the Straits of Malacca and are never found again. They're taken to secluded, coves in Indonesia or Malaysia or somewhere like that. They're dismantled and the goods sold off as contraband. But anyway, the South China Sea. The behavior of China is reprehensible. It is in violation of the International Court of Justice, the ICJ, which is the international body that solves disputes between states. So if Canada and the U.S. have a territorial dispute, they go to the International Court of Justice, and they must abide by its decision. At least they've agreed to it. China agreed to abide by its decisions, and it has ignored the ICJ's decision that said that it was not authorized to do what it's doing. Just blew off the ICJ. The Chinese communist regime is criminal. They fail to adhere to agreements that they've signed, and they just simply disregard them when it's not in their favor. Now, the International Court of Justice has settled disputes, for instance, between Botswana and Namibia. Sududu Island, a small, tiny little island in the Chobe River, which depending on the season and the rainfall, almost completely disappears at times. But Sududu Island was in dispute between Namibia and Botswana. They went to the International Court of Justice, and it decided in the favor of Botswana. So now that island is considered part of Botswana, and Namibia has recognized that, even though they didn't like it. In Cameroon, the Bokassa Peninsula is disputed territory with Anglophone-speaking Cameroonians, and the Nigerians claim it as part of their territory. But the International Court of Justice determined it belongs to Cameroon, and that's a decision. In the South China Sea, the International Court of Justice said that this land, this sea lane, does not belong to China. But China simply ignores that international agreement, and they just do what they want to do. All right, so I noticed that somebody disappeared here. We lost a troll. What happened there? Anyway. Chris, is it true that China has built an artificial sun? No, but that's a Dyson sphere. That's an artificial planet, an artificial star. That's something that's theorized is possible for an alien species to build a Dyson sphere. Yep. Liaison says you don't like oxtail. Next time you come to South Africa, organize proper oxtail for you. Maybe some offal. Not an oxtail fan. Also, don't eat goat. Okay. Needed ICJ during the Falklands and Malvinas. Yeah, that's a whole other discussion there. Well, it was around. Just that dispute wasn't taken there. The states have to agree to go before the court. Both states. They don't. It doesn't have sovereignty over them. It's just an agreement. Chimpanzee started using tools. Evolution evolved. I don't know. The Big Bang Theory. There you go. Right, ladies and gentlemen. So it's Friday night. I hope everybody's enjoying themselves. We got a new member. Let me go back through that and make sure we got credit for where credit is due. And I want to thank you guys for membership. And so 67 members. Gus became a member today. Thank you so much for that, Gus. Tunes became a member yesterday. Thank you for that. And Herman Ruse upgraded his membership yesterday, but I don't see Herman here tonight. Must be busy with the tobacco. And then also Anna Marie Jenkins became a member yesterday. Thank you so much for that, guys. Really appreciate becoming members of Chris White Africa. 67 members and counting. And then we had a few super chats today. This was kind of to say thanks for the super chats. As I mentioned, Tom gave the last two super chats, 99 and 100, which put us at 100 super chats in less than a month on the channel. Thanks so much for that. Really appreciate that. And then today, Brett gave 3 super chats, asking questions about the DRC, making a point about ESCOM being terrible, and my thoughts on Ilhan Omar. So I hope that you guys found that interesting. And membership has kind of gone sideways, gone nowhere today. Actually, wow, lost a couple of subscribers. Wonder what that's all about. Did I say something that offended somebody? Well, that's a shame if I hurt someone's feelings. It's not intentional. Anyway, so what else we got to talk about here? This Goya thing is really disturbing, folks, this cancel culture. By the way, Joe Emilio will be back on my channel sometime soon. We'll be talking about cancel culture and the status of his case. He actually asked me to share something with my stream. Let me see if I can find that very quickly. Let me see if I can find that. Joe Emilio. He wanted me to share. Yeah, that's what it was. Let's see if I can find this. Okay. No Jokes Comedy. So I want to share this with you guys. I just got to get it to open. It's a South Africa website, so it's very slow. Oh, there it is. Okay, yeah. So Joe asked me to share this on my stream. So I'm going to do that because I promised to do that. So let me bring that up here. Okay. There we go. Okay, so what's going on there? That's weird. Okay, here we go. Let me bring this back up. Sorry, folks. I just want to make sure I got this up there so we can show it to you. That's not it. Hang on. It didn't come out right. Let's do this. Here we go. Paste and go. That's what I want to do. Okay, so this should be interesting. This is an article that Joe wrote. There we go. Well, the page is not loading. Why is the page not loading? That's weird. Sometimes you gotta love the internet. Here we go. Finally, it's loading. Okay, comedian. This is No Jokes Comedy, and this is an article published on the 6th. Comedian Joe Emilio delves on cancel culture and some of its unintended consequences. Let me share that with folks in the chat. So if you want to, go check that out, you're welcome to do that. Here you go. All right, as long as it fits in there. Oh, it just fits. Okay, that's the link to Joe's article. Check it out. He's talking about cancel culture there. And so it's really well written, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. I highly recommend it. Joe showed me a copy of it before it was published, and it's really well done. So check it out. It talks a lot about cancel culture. Not that long an article, but very well written, very lucid. I guess I'm going to have a little trouble, giving Joe a hard time about being a Texan, Egyptian, South African, because clearly he has a handle on the English language. This is really well written, really well done on his part. So part of his what's going on. Now, Joe's reaching a crossroads about what he's going to do in his legal case. We'll talk about that sometime soon. But Joe will be back on the channel sometime soon. By the way, for folks who don't know, that once a month program in which I appear on Ronaldo host program will take place this Sunday. 2 weeks ago, I got bumped because John Steenhuisen was supposed to be on, and that didn't happen for whatever reason. And then he came on last week. So here we are 3 weeks later, and I'm on with Ronaldo. So Sunday, on a Sunday service on Ronaldo host program, you'll be able to listen to me if you'd like to go to Ronaldo's channel and catch the Sunday service. So that'll be Ronaldo and I coming on Sunday. So that should be interesting on his channel. I have not been on there now for over a month, I think it is. Well over a month. But that's a program which Ronaldo promised to do once a month, to have me on his program to talk about issues that are germane. And so that'll be this Sunday evening at 8 p.m. in South Africa. So 2 p.m. here on the East Coast of the United States. Check it out. Should be fun. And I have a notification from one of my potential guests, someone from the rugby world. Let me check on that while we're talking about this. Tuesday's perfect. Let's lock it in, share a couple. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, I can now announce to you that on Tuesday at noon or 6 p.m. in South Africa and in Botswana, right here on Chris White Africa, Donald Stanford, former USA Eagles Sevens rugby player, and now a premier rugby broadcaster who covers all sorts of events around the world, including U.S. Major League Rugby, U.S. National Eagles tournaments, the Sevens for HSBC around the world, and also the Rugby World Cup. Donald Stanford will be with me, and perhaps we'll ask him a little about his experience in broadcasting with Joel Stransky, who was his broadcast partner back in Japan. And so that will be on Tuesday, Donald Stanford. I'm looking forward to that. And at the moment, it looks like Donald will be the first of my rugby guests on the channel. So part of my Rugby Ascendant, which is a little theme I've got on the channel. So yeah, so that should be interesting. Let me see if I can find this. I'm trying to find an album here very quickly and find a picture. See if I can find this very quickly, because I wasn't sure that was going to come in. I didn't plan on actually sharing that with you guys. Yeah, that's not it. Okay. Is that it? That's not it either. It's just... Nope. Trying to find this. There it is. Okay, let me see if I can find this very quickly here. All right, so... all right, here we go. I'm going to show you this picture, guys. I hope you like this. This is in Kobe, and this was taken during the Rugby World Cup. So I want to share that with you all very quickly. Here we go. I'll bring this in. This is Dahlin, and you'll recognize some of the folks here. So, but Dahlin, I'll point him out to you. So, okay, and this is where I had to catch myself saying I fibbed about something, because I thought I'd never worn that Japanese jacket before, and I actually wore it at this game. I forgot about that. So here you go. All right, ladies and gentlemen, there you go. This is in Kobe. This is after the South Africa-Canada game. And if you look in the center wearing the Quagga Burger t-shirt, looking like the Burger King, that's Donald Stanford, former USA Sevens rugby player. To the right of that is me with the Japanese bandana on. And, of course, the gentleman on the far right, on my left with my arm over his shoulder, is, of course, Joel Stransky, famous for the goal, the drop goal that won the 1995 Rugby World Cup on South African soil. There's Joel, folks, right there. So that's a picture of the three of us and a bunch of other folks who were there. I don't know the other folks, but I do know Dahlin. I know Joel Stransky. So yes, that's me without a beard. Yep, wearing my Springboks jersey, my Springboks. It's not a kimono. What are those things called? Those jackets? My silk jacket, and brilliant there. So pretty cool. Yeah, the guy in the middle between Dahlin and I think, was responsible for security, or maybe he was a broadcast partner who I'm not familiar with. But yeah, there's Dahlin. Dahlin will be my guest on Tuesday right here in Chris White Africa. Let's get a big audience for him, folks. Please tell people about it. I'm going to build a promo for it, but I really like to get a decent audience, try to get over 100, maybe more folks to tune in for that. Dahlin's a fascinating character. He's from South Africa, grew up in South Africa. What's that? Oh my goodness, what is that? What is that? Oh, look at that. Tom donated $2 to Super Chat. Well, thank you so much for that Super Chat. It's a stripper Super Chat. Oh, my goodness. Going to have to dance for my money here in just a moment. Hang on, Tom. I'll give you the stripper dance in just a moment. But, yeah, so Dahlin grew up in South Africa. He's South African by birth. Came to America. I think if we go to university, we'll find out for sure in the interview. And then wound up playing for the USA Sevens national team, and then went into broadcasting. And he's, as I said, he's well known in the HSBC 7 series, broadcasting those games, but now also for the Rugby World Cup. And he's done Major League Rugby, and he's a spokesman for the Glendale Raptors, who now have changed their name to the Colorado Raptors, and they've actually left Major League Rugby. So there you go, folks. That's Dahlin Stanford and I at the Rugby World Cup in Kobe. Thank you so much, Tom, for that $2 Super Chat. Okay, so we're going to... There you go. There's your stripper chat. Anyway, so I hope that wasn't too painful for people to watch. Let's see. Bosch Zebra says, Boca. That's right. And there's the William Webb Ellis Trophy, South African flag, and a rugby ball. My custom emojis. Thank you so much for that. What else we got here? I think Ana's trying to sort out something with her card. Well, ask Jesse Creel or John Smith via my daughter. Oh, are you serious, Ana? Are you serious? Don't tease me. Other people have teased me before. Don't tease me. If you can get John Smith or Jesse Creel, oh my goodness, that would be amazing. Some other folks have promised to get me some other Springboks. I would love to get them on here to talk about rugby, about the Springboks, about Super Rugby, playing in Europe, wherever they played. Fantastic. I will get those guests on. John Smith would be great. Jesse Creel would be a lot of fun. I really would enjoy getting those guys on the channel. So if anybody has any contacts in the rugby world beyond mine, now I'm also going to reach out. I haven't done it yet, but I'm also going to reach out to Nigel Owens. I know Nigel Owens remotely, not personally, but I know him remotely, and I have a contact with him. So I'm going to reach out to Nigel. He would be an absolutely brilliant guest, but I want to have a good audience, ladies and gentlemen. I don't want 20 people to show up for a stream. Nothing against 20 people show up, but when you get someone that stature, you want to get people in the stream. So Nigel Owens is somebody I'm going to reach out to, and I'm also going to ask Jaco Piper if I can get him on. Jaco, I also know, not personally, but professionally. So I will ask Jaco Piper. Jaco would be a fantastic guest, a lot of fun to have on. Jaco Piper and, of course, Nigel Owens would be fantastic. So I don't know Wayne Barnes, but if I get Wayne Barnes, Craig Joubert. I've met Craig Joubert, but I've never actually had any contact with him. But if I get hold of Craig Joubert, that'd be great too. Rugby officials are as exciting and interesting as the players themselves. Anyway, so I would love to get those folks on. What's this? Christo donated 100 Rand super chat and got the zombie climbing up from Hollingsburg. Well, thank you so much for that, Christo. Really appreciate that. Thank you so much. I'm going to go to bed in your 45-degree temperature. I'm assuming you have good aircon there. But anyway, so folks, that's some of the people I'm trying to get on the channel this coming week. Still working on a few other folks. Yeah, a lot of folks, it's time for night. I know it's Friday, but it's after 11 o'clock in South Africa and Botswana, even later in Saudi Arabia and other parts of the world, so people are tired. You should have once a week sport personality on your channel. Well, Hendo, I would not disagree with that, but I actually have to get them on. Actually, let me check my phone to see if I got a call back. Not yet, but I was in touch with someone who works for USA Rugby and is a rugby coach and done a lot of things. I'm not going to disclose the name because I want it to be a surprise, but also trying to get someone on there. Now, I actually know a number of the Eagles Sevens players. Not well enough that I can reach out to them, but I can reach out to them through others. So I'm going to try to get them on. Wouldn't it be cool to see Perry Baker or Carlin Isles on this stream? What about Quagga Smith? Quagga Smith would be great. What about Vanna Cook? I would love to have Vanna Cook on this channel. That would be amazing. Siabatla Sanatla. That would be awesome, wouldn't it? Anyway, so if anybody knows any of these folks, reach out to them. Tell them I'd love to get on my channel. I think that if you watch my channel, you know that whoever comes on the channel will get a fair shake. I don't sandbag people. I also don't blow smoke up their skirts. We honestly discuss issues and topics. But in the fairness to guests, I discuss anything off limits before the stream, and we don't talk about that because people have privacy concerns. Otherwise, they wouldn't appear on broadcast. Anyway, so I'm fair to my guest. I think that we keep an interesting discussion going, and I look forward to getting more guests on here. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to close out that membership goal because that's a little distracting at this point. Let me turn that off. Okay, and I want to thank you all for tuning in tonight. I'm going to go ahead and call it here, and thank you so much for the super chats. Really appreciate that. Brett and Tom and then Christo with that last one there, 100 Rand. Thank you so much for that. So that takes us up to 104 super chats now. Thank you so much for that. 67 memberships and over 4,000 subscribers to Chris White Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoy this tomorrow. I don't have a guest booked yet. So what will happen, the plan for tomorrow will be my first Saturday in 3 months. I haven't had a guest. Wow. There's a couple reasons for that, mostly because I'm busy doing other things. And some of my guests had to back out on Saturday, can only appear later because of other commitments. So if I don't have a guest for tomorrow, what we will do is it'll be a Zoom session and you'll be able to call in and talk about things of interest to you. So that's tomorrow at 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time on Saturday, the 11th of July. And that's 5 p.m. in Botswana and South Africa tomorrow. So that'll be a call-in session if we don't do that. Okay, folks, thank you. God bless. By the way, I'm not playing Gisele's music because I'm getting a little tired of this third party frustrating me. And I'm not going to continue it because now they blocked the video. And I don't want my videos to be blocked in the future. So until that's resolved, I'm going to take a hiatus playing Gisele's music. Sorry for that if you're waiting for Gisele's music. It really is nice for the intro for the program and the outro. But right now, I'm just going to leave it off. So we're going to close with just my closing stuff. So anyway, but thank you all for tuning in. Thank you who watched the stream earlier with Gisele, whoever did that. And also thank you guys for watching this stream. I really appreciate your patronage. God bless. Have a good night. And we will catch you next time here on Chris White Africa tomorrow, 11 Eastern, 5 p.m. in South Africa and in Botswana. God bless. Team, be safe and have a good night.